Okay, I think I'll start with some housekeeping items. Welcome for everyone who's joined us this evening. Before we get started, I just wanted to share that this webinar is being recorded and that we'll post a link of the recording on our website and our YouTube channel. So if you know folks who may want to be interested in the future, you can go ahead and direct them there. We're also going to be having Spanish interpretation services by Allison Trujillo. Hi, Allison. She is. During the webinar, and please note that you can only join language interpretation from computer audio during the webinar. You cannot use the dial-in or call me phone audio features to access Spanish interpretation. And to hear the Spanish translation audio, you must use the desktop browser or the desktop app. You select the interpretation icon. It's like a little globe icon on the black menu bar. And I'm going to go ahead and give Allison a chance to give those instructions in Spanish.
Hola a todos, gracias por unirse a ustedes esta noche. Y antes de comenzar, tenemos algunos asuntos que queremos repasar. Yo proporcionaré los servicios de interpretación. Tenga en cuenta que los asistentes solo pueden acceder a la interpretación al español con el audio de la computadora durante el seminario. Así que no se puede, para escuchar el audio de la traducción al español, debe utilizar el navegador de escritorio o la aplicación de escritorio. Y puede seleccionar el icono del mundo que aparece por debajo de la pantalla. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Allison. So we have now turned on Spanish interpretation. And then just a couple last things before we get started. During the question and answer portion of the webinar, participants who have joined via phone may dial *9 to raise their hands, and we'll give you the option to speak, and you can dial *6 to unmute yourself. If you're joining on a computer, you can just use the hand icon to raise your hand, and we'll provide you with the option to unmute for questions. And we're also enabling the chat for the webinar, so please feel free to put any questions you may have in the chat, and we'll try to monitor that and then read those questions aloud for the presenters. And I'm just making sure, I think that's it. So let's go ahead and get started. Welcome to From Vision to Impact. This is a webinar series that we are hosting that outlines the origins of Ag and Open Space, our agency, and how we carry out our mandate for the voters, why land conservation is so important, especially in the face of climate change and other threats, and the benefits the community receives in return for their sales tax dollars. You can go next slide. I'm Misty Arias. I'm the General Manager of Ag and Open Space, and I'm joined tonight by Jen Kuzmar, who's our Acquisition Manager, and Mary Chambers, our Agricultural Specialist. This is the second webinar in our Vision to Impact series. Tonight, we will focus on land for agriculture. I'm going to give a little bit of a brief overview of our organization, but if you want to know more, please check out our first webinar, which is called Ag and Open Space 101 and can be found on our website at sonomaopenspace.org or our YouTube channel. And this webinar, as I mentioned, will also be recorded, so please feel free to share with your groups. Okay, so the agenda for this evening, tonight we're going to talk about the background and driving policies of Ag and Open Space, the importance of agriculture in our county and community, how conservation easements benefit our community and while also supporting local agriculture, what we have done to date to support agriculture, what actions we are taking now, and what we plan to do in the future. So we'll start with a little bit of background. Our mission is to permanently protect the diverse agricultural, natural resource, scenic open space lands of Sonoma County for future generations, but we are really a community-created, taxpayer-funded agency that creates lasting protections for agricultural and natural lands. As a special district of Sonoma County, we use funds from a quarter-cent sales tax collected countywide to conserve farms and ranches, scenic landscapes, natural resource areas, greenbelts around cities, and land for public access and recreation. Our vision is a connected network of conserved lands supporting resilient human and natural communities. Essentially, we conserve land for life. In 1990, the voters passed Measure A, which created our organization, Sonoma County Agricultural Preservation Open Space District. We go by Ag and Open Space for short. which is a special district created under the California Public Resources Code. At that same time, the voters also passed Measure C, which established a quarter-cent sales tax to be collected countywide to fund our agency's work. And Measure C was a 20-cent tax, 20-year tax that would have sunset in 2011. So in 2006, we went back to the voters to reauthorize the tax for another 20 years. That was done with Measure F. Measure F passed with sorry about that, Jen, over 76% of the vote and went into effect in 2011. It is due to sunset in 2031, so we will again be asking voters to reauthorize the tax to continue this critical conservation work, which is more important now than ever given the impacts of climate change, extreme events, and the role landscapes play in maintaining physical and mental health. Now, next slide. So we do have a long-term strategy, our Vital Lands Initiative, which drives our conservation efforts. And in 2021, our board of directors approved the Vital Lands Initiative. And it is a comprehensive plan that prioritizes our land conservation activities through 2031. The plan was developed with the best available data and science, as well as extensive input from our partners and the community, because we really wanted to ensure that the document reflects the knowledge and expertise of stakeholders and the land conservation goals of Sonoma County voters. So the Vital Lands Initiative includes ag and open space background and accomplishments. It has the then current state of land conservation in Sonoma County and expected trends, goals, objectives, and map priorities. These are the goals that you see on the screen here for land conservation areas. It includes criteria, processes, and for identifying conservation priorities, and then strategies and tools for implementing the vision. But since the focus of this evening is agricultural land, lands for agriculture, there are specific agricultural land objectives identified in Vital Lands, and I'll just name a few. And this, the Vital Lands Initiative also can be found on our website. There's a summary and the full text. So the goal for agricultural lands calls upon us to protect highest priority grazing lands and croplands, and to create a balanced portfolio of protected lands that represents the diverse types of agriculture in Sonoma County, to support access to land for farmers and ranchers, and to prioritize the protection of land that has infrastructure and facilities for agricultural processing, which are compatible with other agricultural objectives and ag and open space conservation features. You can go to the next slide. And so here, what we have here is a map of our protected lands, the work that we have accomplished since we were created in 1990. This map highlights all those lands that have been protected to date, and in green represents lands that are protected through conservation easements. This is both over privately owned and publicly owned lands. Orange, that kind of burnt orange color, are lands that we happen to own outright, and then blue are open space easements we have acquired as conditions of development projects. The map also shows other publicly owned or protected lands, like some of our partners or public agencies, in a lighter green-gray color. So since our formation in 1990, Ag and Open Space has protected over 127,000 acres of land, more than 12% of land in Sonoma County, as I mentioned, but primarily through the purchase of conservation easements, but also there are some lands we own outright. And that is it for a kind of a background, just high-level overview of the organization to give a little bit of a foundational understanding, and I'll turn it over to Jen, who's going to jump into our land for agricultural components.
Thanks so much, Misty. Now that we have a little context of our work more broadly over the last 35 years, I'm going to dig into how Ag and Open Spaces worked with and supported agriculture in Sonoma County through our quarter-cent sales tax. So when you're thinking about Sonoma County, how many places are there where food on the table, from fresh crab to tender lamb chops, beautiful salads and vegetables, artisan cheeses with seasonal fruit, a world-class glass of wine, even ice cream comes from your neighborhood? With a range of microclimates, mild weather, and a long heritage of agricultural innovation, Sonoma County is fortunate to have an abundance of diverse, locally grown food. Land conservation plays an essential role in maintaining viable and productive agriculture, even as land prices rise and development pressures grow. Keeping farms and ranches close to consumers assures a dependable local food supply, as well as fostering educated and appreciative consumers. Sonoma County's rich soils and favorable climate make it a vibrant and productive area for agriculture. Although it lies at the edge of a rapidly urbanizing Bay Area, Sonoma County retained its rural farms and ranches due to the economic viability of productive agricultural lands and the active protection of these lands from development. Agricultural activities offer many benefits to the greater community, including jobs and revenue to the local economy, as well as locally produced food, fiber, and other agricultural crops. The amount of land that it's required to run a successful agricultural business varies depending on the type of crop or the type of livestock. However, virtually all agricultural operations benefit from being adjacent to or near similar types of operations. There are shared resources, common services, and a general understanding of the requirements of running a farm, ranch, or dairy, benefits that result from being in close proximity to and connected to other similar properties. Protection of agriculturally productive land also helps to maintain open space, scenic views, and green belts. Luther Burbank once said about Sonoma County that it's the chosen spot of all of Earth as far as nature is concerned. But long before Luther Burbank was farming in Sonoma County, Native peoples thrived on these lands. The indigenous communities of the Dry Creek Rancheria Band of Pomo Indians, the Federated Indians of Grayton Rancheria, the Kashaya Band of Pomo Indians, the Mishual Wapo, the Cloverdale Rancheria of Pomo Indians, and the Lytton Band of Pomo Indians lived on these lands using the resources available to feed and care for themselves. In addition to all the other things I've mentioned about the importance of agriculture in feeding us, employing folks, and being the backdrop of our daily life, agricultural lands provide benefits like groundwater recharge, wildfire resilience, and carbon sequestration. They can protect aquatic ecosystems that provide habitat for native species of plants and wildlife. Because of these multiple benefits, protection of priority at-risk agricultural lands is essential to the continued viability of agriculture, as well as our quality of life in the county. Maintaining agricultural open space lands gives a place for water to drain through the soils, recharging our aquifers and preventing runoff of stormwater into local creeks and rivers. These lands have also proven to slow the spread of wildfire in some cases. Farms and ranches can sequester carbon, reducing greenhouse gas emissions, and improve soil health. A connected landscape of protected farms and ranches also provide places for wildlife to move around versus how they can move around in more densely populated parts of the county. So before I dive into how conservation easements help in an agricultural context, I wanted to provide a brief overview of a conservation easement. Ag and open space conservation easements are legal agreements between willing landowners and our agency that permanently limit the use of land to protect its conservation values. Specifically for us, those are agricultural, natural, scenic, or recreational attributes of the property that also provide a public benefit. Conservation easements are a popular and highly effective tool for ensuring protection of a community's most important open space, including those agricultural and natural resources, and they do it through non-regulatory means. When landowners sell or donate a conservation easement to ag and open space, they're transferring to us certain property rights, such as development rights, which they can no longer use. As the landowners, they can still sell the property or pass it on to their heirs as they could before, and they can use and maintain their property as they wish, so long as it's consistent with the terms of the conservation easement. The conservation easement runs with the land forever, so new owners are subject to the same rules as their successors. As a land use, agriculture is vulnerable to both economic and environmental factors. As the market for agricultural products change, farmers have to adapt to these changes by adjusting their crops and operations to meet the new demands. Farmers are particularly vulnerable to changes in climate that may affect the timing and volume of rainfall, the location and timing of frost events or wildfire, and the emergence of new pests and diseases. Protecting a diverse range of agricultural landscapes and working farms and ranches will help preserve the capacity to produce world-class food, beverages, and fiber. Landowners who work with ag and open space to protect their land through a conservation easement can also reduce or eliminate the risks of their land being subdivided or no longer being used in agriculture. Conservation easements can give farmers the economic boost they need to maintain the county's variety of food crops, which in turn strengthens the industry's resilience to changes in weather and market demand. The landowner who actually partners with us also receives a financial benefit. This benefit varies from project to project, but is typically when an agreement is made, The landowner receives a one-time payment based on the difference in the appraised value of the land with and without the conservation easement. They may also see a reduction in property taxes. It's up to the landowner how they use that money. They can use it as they see fit, but often they use those funds to reinvest in the property, which can further enhance the conservation features that we've sought to protect. While there are many benefits of conservation easements and they're a really powerful tool to keep agricultural land intact, they can't address all the challenges that farmers and ranchers face. Conservation easements can work in tandem with other service providers and other land conservation tools. As Mary will cover in her part of the presentation, Ag and Open Space staff work to develop new strategies, strengthen partnerships, and advocate for policies that can provide additional support to our agricultural community and build upon our public investment in conservation easements. One of the conservation easements' greatest strengths is that it's forever. The easement holder, in this case us, is permanently obligated to ensure that the terms of the conservation easement are being properly honored, even when the land changes hands. The easement holder must visit or monitor the property periodically to ensure that the public's investment remains intact and the conservation features are protected. Ag and Open Space communicates with landowners on a regular basis through easement monitoring and other ongoing stewardship activities, and prioritizes meeting all new and successive landowners to discuss the terms of their particular easement agreement. Speaking of stewardship, conservation easement stewardship calls on our staff to build and nurture relationships with landowner. Typically, this work involves reviewing the conservation easement with landowners to make sure that the responsibility of caring for the land is clearly defined, including what is and is not allowed so the conservation values remain protected. We regularly monitor conserved lands and meet with landowners to document the current conditions of the land. These monitoring visits are also excellent opportunities for landowners and staff to talk through any questions or challenges or successes. Supporting landowners is another way that we do this work. They may have questions like identifying wildlife-friendly fencing options, reviewing forest management plans, or how the easement outlines where a new barn or shed could be built. Ag and Open Space also provides landowner support through monitoring visits, reviewing land use and easement amendment requests, and sharing best practices and funding opportunities through our website and a landowner-specific e-newsletter. We take special care with landowners who are new to working with conservation easements, helping them understand how the easement informs the way they care for the land and how we can support them. But this support is really a two-way street. Sometimes the support comes from Ag and Open Space learning from landowners. Sonoma County is so fortunate to have such a long history with agricultural innovation and generations of successful agricultural operations. We're always eager to learn more from folks whose livelihoods are made working these local landscapes and connect folks when we can. Ongoing care of conserved land takes a collaboration between the landowner, Ag and Open Space, and often includes partner agencies and community-based organizations and even the public. For instance, we work closely with Sonoma and Goldridge resource conservation districts to connect landowners to educational resources, funding opportunities, state and federal resources, and more. And so now, for a real-world example of how conservation easements work, I'm going to show you a brief video showcasing one of our conserved agricultural properties. Theoretically, I am when a video pops up momentarily. I'm going to give it just a second. Or perhaps I'm not going to show a video.
Interesting. Of course, it doesn't work once.
Okay. Well, if this video doesn't come up, I would encourage you all to go to our website and on the Land for Ag picture, which I'm sure we'll link when we send out a copy of the recording. This is a lovely video of the Pacheco Dairy, which are some of our close friends and partners and have a great story to tell. So I will move on. Okay, so looking at our portfolio of conserved easements, of conservation easements, we've protected over 37,000 acres of land that are actively in agriculture. These are lands where we've prioritized that agriculture is one of the primary conservation values. All of the farms and ranches that we've protected through conservation easements are still in active ag. I just want to note that this number, this 37,000 acre number, doesn't include lands where seasonal grazing for vegetation management might occur, like what you might see on a regional park or other properties throughout the county. Though that's certainly a part of our agricultural fabric here, it's just not included in these stats. So even more than 37,000 acres might be in agriculture use on our conservation easement lands. So just want to walk through some of our agricultural conservation land statistics here. So again, that 37,600 acres of land supporting agriculture. The vast majority of that, about 36,000 of that, is available for, is permitted to be used in any number of types of agriculture, from an orchard to a vineyard to row crops, grazing like you see in this photo. And a much smaller amount, about 1,600 acres, is restricted to more grazing or hayfield. 94 properties, those 37,000 acres represent 94 properties producing local food, wine, including 9 dairies, 5 orchards, 45 properties that include some vineyard, 9 fruit or vegetable farms, and bringing up the remainder of that are 26 other grazing, fiber operations, hayfields, or some other type of agricultural operation. So we're really proud of the work that we've done, the amount of land that we've been able to protect through those partnerships with willing landowners, but we still have a lot of work to do. This is a map showing our current active conservation easement projects where there is some type of agriculture priority for our conservation and that are actually being used in agriculture. So that includes 19 projects throughout the county with a total of over 7,500 acres, and includes 2 dairies, 3 small farms, several ranches, and many of these properties, if not all of them, have some sort of multi-benefit that we talked about earlier, where it may be a great groundwater recharge. There may be some important natural resource feature in addition to the ongoing agricultural use. So thought it would be a great opportunity to share with you all tonight some of our recent and active work that we've done. Wanted to talk a little bit about a recent conservation easement acquisition on the McClellan Dairy. This is just west of Petaluma. If you can see from the map, we've got Pepper Road and Bodega Avenue that are along the property. This is an active dairy operation that's just under 350 acres. It's got excellent agricultural soils, abundant water, which is key to nearly all agricultural operations. They're an organic dairy that also has a carbon farm plan. So some of those other multi-benefits that we talked about improving soil health or offsetting greenhouse gas emissions. It's also along a scenic corridor, so providing that beautiful pastoral landscape that we're also used to and appreciate here. And then also contains a stretch of Stemple Creek, which is a really important watershed locally. And then next, I'm really excited to share with you all tonight something you might have heard about in the paper or seen on your social media, but wanted to share our excitement about what we call the Hartunian North property. It's a property Ag and Open Space owns that we've been leasing to Tierra Vegetables for more than 2 decades. This property, if you're not familiar with it, it's located just north of Santa Rosa on Airport Boulevard. It's just over 16 acres. What's different about this property from what we've talked about is in many instances, we're working with a private landowner to buy a conservation easement from them. Because we already own this land, we've negotiated that conservation easement, and that will come with the sale of the land. So the land will come with the conservation easement already recorded on the property. What's also a little different here than what we've talked about thus far is we're also including what we call an agricultural covenant. And this is a way to ensure that the property remains in that agricultural use forever. So in addition to the conservation easement. What's really neat about these tools is they've helped make the land more affordable to the current farmers, while also ensuring that our goals of conservation of this property are met. Again, we're super excited about the opportunity here. We're currently in contract with Tierra Vegetables to purchase the property around the end of the year. So hopefully you'll see some news about that just after the first of the year. And now, technically, I'm going to try to share another video with you about Tierra Vegetables. And if it doesn't work, again, it's on our website. And if it doesn't work, we'll move on to questions and then Mary's portion of the presentation.
And Jen, Amy or Michelle put the link to the tier
Oh, awesome.
chat.
Great.
But it looks like it's in.
Okay, looks like tier is going to work. So I'll put myself on mute and start this video.
My name is Lee James.
I'm Wayne James. I started TR Vegetables when I was 24. We've also been in the county now for 37 years doing this, that we're known by a number of people, and you know, the word of mouth gets around.
We had been farming a number of different small places. Either you farm in a beautiful little remote place and you ship all your produce out somewhere, or you farm in an accessible location, you know, right off the freeway, and you have people come to you and get it.
We wanted to be where the customers were. That was the primary reason for pursuing this particular location. We were looking for somewhere to expand. I had heard about the Open Space District as an organization that was preserving agricultural land, and found out about this particular parcel. With open space buying out the easement, making the land more affordable, and made it possible for us to farm here. Legacy that we hope to leave is that, you know, hopefully there's a lot of people out there that grew up eating these produce from here, fresh produce, and will continue teaching their kids and continue on that, you know, buying local, eating local food, and hopefully it'll be a better community.
All right. Well, I love that little video, and I hope you'll get to see the Pacheco one as well. It's really nice. I'll pause here to see if any folks have any questions at this point in the presentation. And I'll look to my friends, our admin friends here, to see if there's any hands raised or anything like that.
I'm not seeing any hands raised so far, but if you do have questions, please raise your hand and I will allow you to talk.
All right. Well, please feel free to raise your hand or put any questions you might have in the chat. And with that, I will hand it over to Mary Chambers.
All right, thank you, Jen, and thanks to everyone for being here. My name is Mary. I'm the agricultural specialist at Ag and Open Space, and I'm excited to share some more with you this evening. As Jen covered, we know that agriculture is incredibly important to Sonoma County. It provides so much to our community. And as Jen also mentioned, agriculture faces huge challenges globally and particularly here in Sonoma County. Some of these challenges include things like extremely high costs of the inputs necessary to produce agricultural products, fluctuations in market, challenges in accessing water, impacts of climate change like wildfire and drought, and maybe one of the largest ones, just the high price and the difficulty in accessing agricultural land. Some of these challenges are things that Ag and Open Space is able to address, at least in part, using the tools that we have, and some of them are not. But it's important for us at Ag and Open Space to understand all of these challenges that our agricultural producers face so that we are aware of the broader context that our producers are working in. We are continuing to try different approaches, different tools to address the challenges that we are able to support farmers and ranchers with. And we also work continually to find other sources of support for producers to connect to around the challenges that we are not able to address within our organization. So for the rest of my slides, I'm going to be talking about some of the innovative ways that Ag and Open Space is using the tools that we have to support the agricultural community and otherwise connecting our farmers and ranchers with resources to succeed. Next slide, please. I'll first talk about a program that was specific to the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. This was our Agricultural Support and Assistance Program, or our ASAP grant program. We developed this program to provide support for local food and flour producers during those really difficult conditions. At that time, there were really severe market fluctuations and a total shutdown of a lot of sales outlets for our local producers, which meant that farmers and ranchers were scrambling to sell their stock and to cover their costs. At the same time that they were really struggling with those market fluctuations, a lot of producers were also starting up or expanding programs to get the food that they were producing to people who needed to eat it, people who were experiencing new challenges with food access, like senior citizens. The ASAP grant program was able to come in at this time and cover on-farm costs for some of our local producers, including everyday costs like compost or boxes to put produce deliveries in, and also to help with the cost of larger, longer-term projects, like a well, for example, that's still supporting the success of that farm that it was installed on today. We had 9 grant recipients through this program, and we were able to disperse over $152,000 to support the different farmers that participated. And compared to some of the really large grants that you might hear about on a federal level, for example, this was a small amount, but it really helped these farmers get through and continue operating through this really unprecedented threat to their operations. Next slide. Great. So now looking toward the future, I want to talk about some other ways that Ag and Open Space is using our existing tools, but through kind of more innovative approaches or different approaches than we have previously. We want to bring the conservation tools that we have to bear on one of those biggest challenges that I mentioned that's facing our local farmers and ranchers, which is being able to find affordable and secure long-term access to agricultural land. Our aim in the long term is to develop a toolkit that's going to support land access in several different ways, and we're calling this concept of a toolkit Farmland for All. The goals of all the tools in the Farmland for All toolkit are going to be to preserve agricultural land, facilitate equitable land access for agricultural producers, and to support local food security. We're currently mainly focused on piloting the implementation of the first tool in this toolkit, the Buy, Protect, Sell program, and I'm going to talk about that in a little bit more detail in a moment. But we are also in parallel investigating other potential tools for this toolkit, like increasing our use of conservation buyer transactions, which is where we work with a land seeker who's already engaged with a potential land seller, and increasing the use of affirmative covenants, which, as Jen mentioned, ensure that a protected property not only is protected from development, but also remains in agricultural use in perpetuity. Next slide. All right, so I'm going to dig a little bit more into our Buy, Protect, Sell pilot program, since that's the Farmland for All tool that we are primarily focused on at the moment. The way that this program is going to work is that Ag and Open Space is going to purchase a property that's suitable for land-seeking farmers and small ranchers in Sonoma County. That's the buy portion. Then we will design a conservation easement and an agricultural covenant that protects the features of that property. That's the protect part. And then the third part, the sell portion of this process, via a competitive application process, Ag and Open Space will select a qualified agricultural producer to be the new owner of the property, and we will sell the property to them at the post-easement price. Because the easement takes away some of the market value of the land by removing the development rights, the land will be somewhat more affordable to the new selected landowner after it goes through this protection process. We are choosing to start our work in the field of land access with the Buy, Protect, Sell program because it's based on tools that Ag and Open Space is already equipped to use, meaning it's something that we're able to start trying out right away with our existing capabilities. And we consulted with a really wide range of local farmers, ranchers, and advocates to design all the stages of this process, the buy, the protect, and the sell stages. As part of the design of this pilot program, we also partnered with the University of California Cooperative Extension for Sonoma County to conduct a study on land access for limited resource farmers to better understand what kind of land access solutions are genuinely helpful for farmers who are limited often not by their skills or their experience, but mainly by their access to capital. And that study confirmed that For at least some of those land-seeking farmers and ranchers, BioProtect Cell would be a good option that would help them to grow their operations and succeed in the long term. So right now we're in the middle of piloting the first effort at our BioProtect Cell transaction process. We're constantly continuing to accept new applicants to potentially participate. We've built up already a nice pool of experienced farmers and ranchers who are hoping to buy a property through this program. And right now we are seeking to find a really good property to buy that's going to appeal to a large number of the buyers in our pool. Then we'll buy it, protect it, and sell it to a qualified farmer or rancher. We're really hoping that in the future, this can become a permanent program that will help many farmers and ranchers in Sonoma County over the long term to gain secure access to land that they can own and operate themselves. Next slide. All right, so as I've mentioned a couple times, Ag and Open Space is able to use our existing tools in some pretty exciting ways, like a BioProtect Cell transaction, but we're not able to address every challenge. And that's where we look to partner organizations and relationships with other organizations to help producers in ways that Ag and Open Space is not set up to do. We've put a lot of focus on strengthening and developing these relationships and partnerships. They not only help us enhance our own work, but they fill in some of these gaps that we're not able to fill. Some of these organizations on this slide are folks that we're working with on specific projects. For example, we're currently partnering with the Sonoma and Goldridge Resource Conservation Districts on a grant program where we will be protecting riparian areas and in some cases restoring the riparian areas within agricultural properties. Other folks on this slide, like the Food Systems Alliance, the Farm Bureau, the Community Alliance with Family Farmers, provide input on our programming and help us to connect directly with producers so that we can understand what their needs are and whether we are doing what they need us to do to support them. And other folks here, for example, California FarmLink or Kitchen Table Advisors, provide specific services to farmers and ranchers that Ag and Open Space isn't set up to provide, things like lending or business advising, but that we know are really essential to the success of producers. And so we try to help to form some of those connections between our farmers and ranchers and these partner organizations. Yes. Another thing that Ag and Open Space does to support our agricultural community is we work to advance some policies and to help direct funding that supports our agricultural community. We partner with several policy advocacy groups, for example, Together Bay Area and Community Alliance with Family Farmers, to forward this work. For example, we joined with partners in several agriculture and conservation advocacy groups recently to support Proposition 4, the climate bond. That bond includes $300 million for climate smart agriculture, and Ag and Open Space will be looking to leverage those funds as they're released by participating in programs supporting things like soil health, carbon sequestration, urban agriculture, and directly supporting increased land access and tenure for farmers and ranchers. We're also advocating for more funding to support agriculture through other means. For example, the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is where revenues from the state's Cap and Invest program are distributed. That was formerly called the Cap and Trade program. Some of the programs that receive funding through the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund include the Sustainable Ag Lands Conservation Program that Ag and Open Space has worked with in the past, and the Healthy Soils Program that many of our local farmers and ranchers use to get funding to improve the quality of their soil while simultaneously sequestering carbon in the soil. And we're also working to support ag-related legislation that furthers our work and supports the local community. Most recently, just to give one example, we partnered with Community Alliance with Family Farmers and others to support AB 524. That was the Farmland Access and Conservation for Thriving Communities Act, although unfortunately it was not signed by the governor. We are also working to bring funding for agriculture to Sonoma County through grants by directly applying to a wide range of grant programs. Just to give a couple of examples, the American Farmland Trust Land Transfer Navigator Program is providing funding and training to our staff, including myself, to learn about how conservation organizations like Ag and Open Space can support farmers and ranchers to protect the legacy of their land via succession planning or planning how that land will be passed to the next generation of farmers and ranchers. For another example, the Regional Conservation Partnership Program is the program I mentioned earlier where we're partnering with resource conservation districts, and that will help us to purchase easements over riparian areas and do some restoration in those riparian areas, providing both ecological benefits and also funding to farmers and ranchers to enhance their stewardship of their riparian reaches. Great. Next slide. All right. So this is my last slide for today, and I want to look to the future of ag and open space, how we're going to continue working to protect and preserve and support farmers and ranchers in our county. Of course, we're going to be continuing our existing work of partnering with landowners to protect their land with conservation easements, and we'll be continuing to pilot our Buy, Protect, Sell program. We'll also continue to seek new ways to respond to the challenges that farmers and ranchers face. We have other tools that we're investigating for our Farmland for All toolkit. We're open to ideas like working with an incubator farm to access land that incubator farm could then lease to multiple beginning farmers or ranchers, or reaching out to our existing network of landowners to raise awareness among them about the opportunity of leasing portions of their land to producers who are seeking land access. We also know that the best innovators in agriculture are, of course, the farmers and ranchers themselves. And so we want to continue to listen to and partner with our agricultural community to make sure that we understand the challenges that they're facing and that we're supporting them in exciting stewardship efforts like regenerative agriculture or rotational grazing. There is still so much to be done in terms of supporting agriculture and preserving agricultural land in our county. And so we'll be looking to you, the community, to support our efforts to continue to support farmers and ranchers. As Misty mentioned earlier, Ag and Open Space will be up for reauthorization again in 2031, and we expect to be on the ballot in 2028. That's all from me, so I'm gonna say thank you again for being here and open it back up for questions. Thank you.
Well, I see no hands raised. If you guys have questions, please either raise your hand. Oh, I take it back. Someone has raised their hand. Just a moment. Jacob Taylor, I'm going to allow you to talk. And just bear with for a moment.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know when I can go.
Go for it.
Okay. I was first of all, thank you. That presentation actually got me excited. What do you see as the biggest inhibitor to kind of the more innovative tactics or agricultural practices that you're implementing? Like what do you see as the biggest roadblocks to that as we work forward? Because Jen, obviously, great presentation. Talked about our financial roadblocks, but I would like to hear a little bit more about that. I don't know if it made sense. Sorry.
Jacob, did you say roadblocks for like innovative practices for agriculture?
Yes.
Is that what you're
Yeah. So these land management and supporting these programs that are helping the farmers, be more aggressive and innovative with agriculture.
Mary, did you want, I thought I saw you unmuting, but I was just trying to clarify. So if you want to jump in, I'll help out if you need to.
Sure. I think there's, many answers to that question about like what are the biggest challenges. I think, of course, every operator's challenges are unique. I will talk first about challenges faced by non-landowning producers. And I think for many producers who are operating on land where they're maybe leasing it like year to year or even month to month, or even don't have an official lease on their land. For a lot of people, I do think that lack of secure ownership is a major barrier to doing more innovative things. If you don't feel secure in your land tenure, it's hard to justify the expense of, for example, planting a pollinator hedgerow that might take several years to start providing its full benefits, but you have to pay all the costs up front. I think it's hard to invest in things like soil health when you don't know how long you're going to be on the property. So I think that can be a really major barrier. And I've not done as much research into how that type of challenge affects land owning agricultural operators, but from what I've heard through conversations with them, I do really think that expense is a major barrier to starting a lot of these practices. Even for someone who owns their own land, a lot of these more innovative stewardship practices, the cost all comes up front, and then you don't see the benefits maybe for several years. So I think cost is a huge barrier in those cases as well, which is why grants can be so helpful to offset some of that upfront expense.
Oh, awesome. I don't know if you can still hear me if I'm still unmuted. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank
Jacob.
you.
Of course.
I see no other questions in the chat and no other hands raised. People are welcome to put their questions in the chat or raise their hand, but I just want to let the panelists know no more questions at this point.
Okay, great. Well, we really appreciate those of you who joined us to learn a little bit more about ag and open space this evening, and always feel free to follow up with us one-on-one if you'd like to talk more about our work or have ideas about ways that we could be doing things differently or who we should be reaching out to. And tell your friends. Yeah, this will be recorded and on our website. So thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you. Bye. Have a good night.